Welcome to the second ever episode of House of the Empire here on a Monday evening just after 9 p.m. Eastern. And it's that time of year where companies forget that there's change in the weather and road conditions, and people go mad and forget how to drive. But nonetheless, we're here to do a show tonight, which is kind of a miracle in its own right, because I wasn't sure if I was going to go to prison today with how pissed off I was getting at people. So we're here, and we're excited to bring you guys and gals a loaded show. We are talking. Actually, we got a bunch of I wouldn't say homework, but things to address off the top. But we also have a Return of the Jedi post-animated series, question mark. Will it or won't it? The Hunt for Ben Solo, Rogue Squadron becoming a series. What were your expectations for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series heading into our Obi-Wan Kenobi watch party tomorrow night, where we will do episode 1 to begin with. And I think during this watch party, we might see if we can pull some other people on with us for some of these episodes. So we'll see what that looks like. We are also talking, is Robert's Rebellion the prequel we need for Westeros TV? We have another Gauntlet of Thrones matchup, and my God, I said to Zach today, I think you're trying to kill me, man. I don't know if this is AI that's pulling these matchups, which he claims it is, or if it's him just trying to finish the fucking job. Because it seems like every matchup we have for Gauntlet of Thrones is two powerhouses against one another, and it's something else. We have Halloween to talk about, a game update and more. We have the Scream 7 trailer. If you haven't seen it, take a moment to watch it. We're going to talk about it a little bit. And Randy, did you get a chance to watch episode 3 of Welcome to Dairy yet, or no?
Yep, I have.
Okay, so we'll do that. I don't imagine Johnny's caught up with that stuff. Are you?
No.
No? Okay. And then our Flixbuster segment today. Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones. And you guessed it. That means Flixbusters next week during a special event will be Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, which will have a parade of different people appearing on and off of that episode, coming and going. It's going to be a lot to keep track of, and we are looking forward to that. Again, next week, Star Wars Wastelands, the show Johnny and I started with our co-host Mondo. Frankly, if it wasn't for that show, the shows we've done since wouldn't exist. 10-year reunion show. It's actually about 10 and a half years, but we're going to call it a 10-year reunion show. And that's going to be a 2.5 to 3 hour show. The first 30 minutes is going to be Mondo, Johnny, and I sitting down with Zach, and Zach's got a parade of questions. Sorry, my dog is intent on driving my wife nuts right now. Zach has a bunch of different questions, just regarding the history of the show and how it got started, and just different things that we experienced on it. What was going on in Star Wars and Lucasfilm and Disney at that time, and where it is today. And then we're going to take a look at the future of Star Wars, the past of Star Wars. We have trivia. That's right, trivia next week. And wait for it. Wait for it. Johnny is not in the match. No, even worse. He will be the quizmaster next week. As tentatively, it's scheduled to be Johnny and Mondo playing the, I guess you could say, the commentary of the trivia match, with Randy going up against not only myself, Mr. Ben Hart from the Star Wars Underworld, and Mr. Zach Arnold are the co-host here on House of the Empire. So a fatal four-way, if you will, that will actually act as more of like a gauntlet elimination match. So, looking forward to that. Johnny, over to you first, man. What's going on, Mr. Fabulous Threesome? And I mean, I'm pretty excited for next week. I'm excited to get the three-headed monster back together for a little bit with a bunch of friends.
I mean, it's definitely exciting. I can't wait for it. It's fun. It takes back. It's, we say that without it we wouldn't be here. That's true. It couldn't be more true. I'm excited for it. It's going to be fun. Trivia is going to be fun? Question mark. Mostly because I haven't done the questions yet, so I don't know how fun it's going to be for you guys. But it's going to be fun. It's it's going to be exciting. I'm sure. There will be love. I'm sure there will be hate. And maybe even some eye rolling. We'll see.
Yeah, our current plan, and I was actually talking to Mondo about this today. He's eager for show notes to get put together. And the simple fact is there are no show notes yet for next week. I have an idea in my head what I would like it to look like outside of that initial 30-minute interview. But we're trying to find time. Since Randy won't be in a normal co-host position next week, he'll be more of a guest that comes in and out. We have Randy to come on. Zach will be live with us, I believe, the entire time next week. And then obviously Mondo as well. I believe those two are actually going to be in the same location for when they're doing it. We're set to have Ben Hart on, who should be a part of the trivia match. Our hope is Tommy B will have time to pop by. Wouldn't be a Wastelands thing without Tommy B. I have spoken with Ian about this, and he will not be able to be live. It's just a question of Ian and I can record like a little 10-minute thing that we can play during the episode before then. When you're like 12 hours difference on the time zone, it's really hard to meet up with people. So, and then last but not least, I believe we have Mr. Ty Nelson, who, if we can fit him in, and by we fit him in, he's always welcome here. I just don't know if our schedule will align with his, but we hope to have him on. I have a bunch of things I'd love to talk to him about. So it's going to be a jam-packed show with trivia and Star Wars gaming talk and just a bunch of shit. Looking forward to it. Randy, I know you weren't around for the Star Wars Wastelands years, man, but you got any thoughts on what this crazy-ass thing might look like next week?
Well, if you're fortunate, it'll definitely won't be like trying to herd cats. So Johnny's reaction says it all. It is going to be like trying to herd cats. So no, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the idea of a fatal four-way essentially in the trivia is got me a little worried, just because there's certain areas I definitely do not know a lot about, and that's just a big old opportunity for me to just kind of suck, and I'd prefer not to. But it is what it is. It's all for fun anyway. So.
All right. Well, let me pull up the notes here, make sure I'm not forgetting anything else. As always, big thank you to our channel sponsors for allowing us to come out here and do this thing and putting up with all the changes we've gone through lately. Big shout out to Ryan over at Kaulignation, who I believe was in the chat earlier. I could have swore seen him. Yes, he was. So shout out to him for sponsoring us, as well as Mr. Jason Ike over at Backtrack Cinema and Mr. Jesse over at Jesse Storytime Spectacular, as well as one of our moderators here, Dustin, who is tentatively at the moment slated to join us tonight for a segment, which would be his first time on one of the shows. So I'm sure that will come with absolute no technical difficulties, seeing that the three people who are on here every week can't seem to avoid them. So let's dive into this. I think we've gone through all that stuff. It's time for our House of Skywalker segment, which is our Star Wars topic. The multiple choice question for this segment is, what is your favorite Star Wars trilogy? Is it the original trilogy? Is it the prequel trilogy? Or is it the sequel trilogy? Comment down below and share your thoughts there, and maybe why as well. All right, fellas. So I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine about essentially why the hell hasn't Lucasfilm and Star Wars and Disney just done the easy layup? A TV show, an animated show that doesn't require certain parties to be there, of the big three. And some might argue, well, how's that for the younger generation? These people aren't that old if you're setting it 10 or 15 years after Return of the Jedi. And you would have the younger characters to be with them as well. For me, it's a layup, an easy layup that they should do and haven't. Of all the shit they do, this feels like a slam dunk, and it hasn't happened. Johnny, if you would have told me back in 2015 when we started Star Wars Wastelands, and we knew new animated projects would come with time, that at this point, they wouldn't have done the common sense thing and have Mark Hamill voice a 45-year-old Luke Skywalker in an animated show where Ben Solo would be with him and you'd have other characters come in and out, I would have said, well, you're fucking stupid, because that's a slam dunk. That's not just a layup, it's a slam dunk. Dude, are you shocked it hasn't happened yet?
Not as shocked, if I'm honest. I think, again, it sort of all roils back around to that reluctance of recasting the big three. And I know that, push comes to shove, Mark would, I'm sure, have been on board. I'm confident in that. Now, not as, but I think, again, the right people, the right story, he could be. It's not so hard for me to believe that if they presented him a coherent story that he believed in, that he would get involved in it. I think it's obviously, you can't have Carrie, obviously. And I think there's a snowball's chance in hell Harrison Ford would do it. Snowball's chance in hell. And it butts you back up against that reluctance to recast the big three. Because you'd have to have Han and Leia involved. There's no way around that long term. Even if it, sort of revolved around Luke and rebuilding the Jedi Order and that sort of thing, I think you still need Leia involved in that story, because presumably Ben would be a big part of that story. And it just, it's absolutely, it's a slam dunk from a storytelling perspective. There's no, I can't argue that point one iota, because it's true. It is, it would very easily be a very easy story to tell, and it would be a very easy story for fans to believe and get on board with. But again, that reluctance is still there, and as long as that reluctance remains, I don't think we'll ever get something like that. Now, obviously, because I don't think Harrison would ever do it, and Carrie certainly can't.
Okay, but come on. You don't need Harrison Ford to have Han. I'm not saying this is what you're saying, but holy fuck, I've heard this way too much over the years. We have to have X person be there to play this role for it to be effective. It's the same fucking crowd that think that because Alden Ehrenreich was Han Solo in Solo, that's why the movie failed. And it's not. It's not even close. People would still pay to see Alden Ehrenreich or other people play Han Solo. One, it's how it's marketed. Two, the movie that comes before it can't be the most divisive thing ever released. And you need more than, 5 months breathing room? So, the only reason I say Mark Hamill is because he's one of the best voice actors there is out there. The other two, obviously Carrie Fisher is deceased now, rest her soul. But Harrison Ford's done very little animation. He's done it, but very little. We don't need him. Look what was it? Was it Troy Barker? Is that who did it? Did the
Troy Baker?
Troy Baker. Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be him, but there are plenty of people that sound like Han and can sound like Han that you can use in an animated series. And I think there's enough younger characters around and new characters that you could create to have involved with the story. The reluctance to do it is mind-boggling, because at this point it's 2025, and what, we're just going to let the characters rot away? Do you think anyone's going to go see a Batman movie because it's just fucking called Bruce Wayne's son? Or are they going to go see the Damian movie? How well is that going to sell? Probably not. Probably not well at all. People want to see fucking Batman. People want to see Superman. People want to see Iron Man. It's like, and lately it seemed like Lucasfilm and Disney have not seen eye to eye. Remember, Lucasfilm still operates under its own umbrella, but needs approval from Disney on a bunch of shit, basically everything. And like the hunt for Ben Solo stuff, there was definitely finger pointing going on there, and which we'll talk about shortly. But it's like, can't you pull your heads out of your asses to do something so incredibly simple and give people what they've wanted for literally ever? Because think about it, the big three are never together in the sequel trilogy, ever. And that's what they wanted. And as long as I think if you produce it like the later seasons of Rebels or the later seasons of Clone Wars with that like a little more teenage, adult friendly feel to it, but still have some other characters for the younger audience, you can appeal to both. And it's just, again, like, what, are they holding off on it because they're going to do a bunch of live action Luke Skywalker movies at this point with a different actor? Highly fucking doubt it at this point. So why not tackle the animation thing? I can't believe we're 10 years into this thing and it hasn't happened yet. Sorry, I cut you off, Johnny, if you have anything.
No, I mean, you're right. You know, it's not my sacred cow, it's theirs. They being, you know, Disney, Lucasfilm, whoever is making that decision. I certainly agree with you that it is the wrong one, especially in animation where, like you said, there's so many talented voice actors who could, you know, while not be Harrison Ford, sound enough like Harrison Ford that you can, you know, so much so that you're not like, oh, that's not Harrison Ford, enough to be like, okay.
Sorry, I didn't know if you were.
Yeah, no, that's all. I'm good. I'm
good. Randy, your take on this, man? This feels like it should be a layup. And the most I've ever heard about it from people that leak stuff, and we really only get a chance to talk to one of those occasionally. It's been something that's been kicked about, but never really been dove into seriously. And we haven't even gotten a fucking Tales of the Jedi thing that's in that era. Like, come on.
Well, I feel like at this point it'd be Tales of the Rebels, considering they keep on picking a certain sect of in Star Wars and then going with it. No, surprised to a degree, but not surprised. I think it's more disappointing than anything else, just because there is plenty of voice actors out there who could easily reprise the roles. I mean, or you could have, obviously you could do Troy Baker for Han, Julie Dolan for Leia, since she's already did it and done it in Rebels. And of course, Mark Hamill, but you know, like Steve Bloom and Sam Witwer and Vanessa Marshall would all be more than happy to lend their voices to something like this, because we all know the Rebels are, you know, the cast from Rebels is still around. So you could easily bring some of them in here and there to reprise their roles. Or one of the things that Steve Bloom always tends to do is have multiple voices, whether it be the movies or animated. He does it all. Same with Sam Witwer. So it's not far out of the question, or out of the realm of possibilities, even to even have something like this. And we know that there's some stories they've already told. If you think about Battlefront 2, when they brought that out and had the storyline in there, you had a whole scene with Luke in it. So it's not like they've never done something like that before. It's just ultimately disappointing, because there's a lot we don't know, and it would be a lot of fun just to see it on the screen and really get to enjoy seeing how our characters grew in between Jedi and The Force Awakens, even though we have glimpses here and there through The Mandalorian, comics, books, things like that. But I still want more visual media giving me stories that I want to know, I want to see. And give us new characters to really enjoy and fall in love with. I mean, think about the idea of getting to see Luke build his new Jedi Order and build his school, and just the fall of it in general before The Force Awakens happens, before the time of Kylo Ren. That's a story I would love to see visually, just because there's so much weight and so much emotion and so much potential there that it's just disappointing all around. As we said, Disney's always been afraid or scared to just straight up recast the big three, and they shouldn't. We've seen it done in so many ways. I mean, hell, think about it. HBO is doing a Harry Potter series, and they recast pretty much everybody. Clearly, HBO wasn't scared to do it.
Much more recently, too.
Exactly. So why not? Why not give us the fans who grew up with Star Wars, the fans who have been there from the beginning, give us something new. Don't be afraid. Show us new stories of the original big three that are still going to have, still pay homage to our love of Star Wars. It's such a miss right now. It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it feels like such a missed opportunity, especially when, like, I won't say wins are few and far, because I've heard nothing but good things about Star Wars Vision Season 3. Andor was amazing, in my opinion, maybe the third best Star Wars project ever released. So, like, you're coming off a couple of big wins there. But for every win, it feels like there's a loss, and then more drama. And this one, even if they decided today, you know what, we're doing it, you're not seeing it for 3 years because of the way you need to work ahead in animation. I don't even know if I'll be here in 3 years. I don't know if any of us will be here in 3 years. Not to sound dark and doomsday over everybody, but, like, this shouldn't be that hard, And I feel like they've done nothing but shot themselves in the foot at times, and it's unfortunate because, like, I'll always be a Star Wars fan, and thank fuck for Andor. Let me tell you that. I don't know where my Star Wars fandom mental state would be in if it wasn't for that show, but yeah. All right, let's move on. Simple one here, because I think we had Johnny on for a bit of this, but the Hunt for Ben Solo stuff is out there, right? And a lot of people seem to think they're trying to Deadpool it. They're trying to gain public favor, put the pressure on Disney, get the green light, and go ahead with it. So my question is simple to the two of you in the audience. Will it or won't it? Will the Hunt for Ben Solo movie happen? Now, it might not be titled that, and I can't promise it'll be Steven Soderbergh directing, but what this movie was intended to be at one point, will it happen? Randy, we'll start with you.
I think it will. I think there's been enough of a driving force through social media alone that it should happen. It definitely feels like when Ryan Reynolds released the Deadpool footage to show the concept works, I feel like that we got that type of traction here. I mean, if you think about it, to the point someone rented out skywriting, one of those planes to have those signs go across the sky. I mean, I thought that was AI at first and realized, hey, this is a real thing. Someone paid to actually do this. So I think there's enough drive behind it. I feel like the fact that you already know that Adam Driver is 100% behind it and he's excited for it and loves the role and loves the story. I feel like it's hard to just pass this up, because you're going to have an actor who's going to put his best foot forward for a character he loves.
Yeah, he would have been the one that I really bet on that would not be back under almost any circumstance. And It's pretty shocking to hear this. Johnny, in some way or semblance, will this thing happen?
I mean, I don't want to be the wet blanket, but no. I think the major difference is that when the Deadpool thing happened, the response went positive. There wasn't the negativity attached to it. And the problem is the fan base has turned this into a fuck Disney moment. And that's the wrong attitude, because that's not going to change their minds. It never should have been that. It should have been a, hold on a minute, we want this. This is something we want. We're interested in this. We can get behind this and throw the positivity behind it. But they didn't. They threw negativity on it. And that's not
like Disney's done to the entire fucking franchise for a decade now.
Exactly. But negativity breeds negativity. And
exactly.
But that's the problem. This wasn't, like, yeah, okay, I agree. But like, that's not going to change their mind. That's going to make them dig their heels in and say, we're right, you're wrong, fuck you. And if we see something, and I'm not saying they won't, cannibalize the script and the project and pull things out of it and turn it into something else. I think they will. But by the time we see whatever that is, it's not this. It's not even going to be close to this. And
I think the problem you run into is I feel like you're going down the path of, because we know, what's the fellow's name again? X-Men guy, did Rebels with Filoni, at least the first couple years. Simon Kinberg? Simon Kinberg, yes. So we know Simon Kinberg is currently writing episodes 10, 11, and 12. My guess is in his drafts, Ben Solo at some point is in there and as a primary player. I just wonder if they haven't, if he hasn't signed a deal yet, which I don't think he has, because who knows if we'll ever even see them. I always say, wait till the fucking cameras are rolling at this point with Star Wars movies. But did you go and do what they did over in Westeros Land, where they burnt Kit Harington and his team that was developing the Snow Show to a point where Kit thought and everybody thought they were good, and George R.R. Martin basically axed it, even though he was in on it. And a lot of bad blood from that, to a point where he's come out and said, I don't know if I ever want to do this again. He was pretty sour over it. And I can't help but wonder, given how selective Adam Driver can be in his career now, if there's going to be a bit of that with him, and now you may not have the ability to bring that character back. Unless you recast him, but that's not one I would be recasting. No, come back there? Nothing? Okay.
Johnny with a comeback, really? Ever? Anyway, I mean, well, yeah, I mean, I still feel like it can happen just because, but there's just, I feel like it's at this point, it's like, Disney, do you not like money? Because there's a lot out there that they could be doing, this movie included, that they would make plenty off of. And it just feels like, rather than give the fans something they want, they're just trying to find out the best way to make money. And they just have, and clearly they need to hire us, because at least we would actually make them money versus whoever tends to choose their Star Wars projects for the most part. There's so many things that they've just put to the wayside that had potential to be really good, and it's a waste. And I would hate for this to end up being another thing that doesn't get done because they feel like it just doesn't make sense, or it's not what their current vision is. Star Wars is supposed to be not just this one concept in a small part of the galaxy. It's supposed to encompass the entire galaxy, and not just, we're supposed to be creating new characters that people are going to fall in love with for generations to come, that for when we're far gone, when we're dead and gone, stuff to pass on to the kids, to the grandkids, that Star Wars still lives on. And if Disney can't get their head out of their ass and decide to actually take a chance on some of these things, who knows what's going to happen to the franchise before we're even gone.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but like most corporate entities, we don't tell them what we want; they tell us what we want.
Yeah, that's worked out real well for them so far. Let's see. Sorry, one second. My apologies. So yeah, we'll see what happens. I just, I don't know. Adam Driver strikes me as Harrison Ford-esque, and you piss him off, I don't know if it matters what the check says, because he's made plenty at this point. And you just mentioned, I think it was Johnny that mentioned the thing about the characters. One thing that gets me is we have Star Wars Starfighter coming out, right? And we've talked about it on previous versions of the show before we combined Bannerman Banter and the Mask of Fear to make the House of the Empire. And that is, you have Star Wars Starfighter 2027. It's gotten way more attention than The Mandalorian and Grogu. They're treating it as this big thing. It's the 50-year anniversary movie. But I can't help but feel like it's because we know the rumor, right? Ryan Gosling's character is trying to get the kid to somewhere to safety that we believe has something to do with the Jedi and more than likely Rey. I guess the plot twist there could be maybe it's not Rey and it's Ben Solo, but I doubt it very much. It worries me because I think Ryan Gosling is the type of actor that can make any role his at this point of his career and really make you like it. And if that's going to end up being one of these movies where his character dies getting the kid to where it needs to be, I'm, as much as I have positive feelings about that movie, it like they need new characters. They do. They need to, still use the ones they've created when there's money still to be made off of them. But yeah, it just worries me. Like, yeah, they found a way to make something of Rogue One where they went back and told prequels, and I with Andor, I wouldn't suggest relying on that recipe all the time, though. Maybe stop killing everybody off.
Well, I mean, in this case, you could have Ryan Gosling's character get captured to end the movie, and that the kid has to convince Ray to go, that they're going to go on a rescue mission or something. I mean, just something to keep the characters fresh in our head and make us look forward to another movie with these characters. I think that's really kind of where we're at. I think that, like with The Force Awakens, we actually enjoyed the characters enough that we're like, okay, we got something here. It's a rehash of Star Wars, a New Hope, but you know what? Let's see what they got. And by Rise of Skywalker, it was like, well, I don't need to see them anytime soon. And that was the thing with the original trilogy. By the time we got to Return of the Jedi, it was like, no, we can't stop. Why are we stopping? Why are we not getting more movies? Why are we not getting something? And that's where Disney's dropped the ball, is giving us characters that we absolutely have to have in our lives, characters we have to see more of. Or if they do, it's cut short, whether it be animated, whether it be in a TV series or movies in this case. They they fumble it. They somehow decide that they'd rather make money off the characters than actually give the fans something to continually want to see the characters themselves. And it's, I mean, Lucas had it right in terms of like what he did back in with the original trilogy. Give everybody somebody you love that you want to keep seeing, but also I get to make money off of everything else. Whereas Disney's just like money, 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 give me money. And that's been the problem. We haven't, and every so often you get a series like Andor that comes around that all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is actually really good Star Wars. It's adult oriented Star Wars. It's stuff that we normally don't get, but we absolutely love. So yeah, that's the challenge, is finding that happy balance that Disney just can't seem to figure out.
They definitely haven't yet, but I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know. I think they are definitely running headfirst into a problem of their own making, and they don't see it yet, but we do, because we are, more outside looking in, right? Like we can sit here and, be fairly confident of the fact that there, we know there's going to be people who are not impressed however this story goes. I think they're expecting sunshine and lollipops no matter the story. That's a problem. I think the story of Starfighter is going to be relevant in that, what it comes back around to is a very important question. Is that what is the MacGuffin? What is the end point? It's an important question that we don't have the answer to yet. And if you tie it into the sequel trilogy, presumably as we have expected it to for a long time, there are going to be those who are staunchly opposed just based on that fact, right? Like, oh, it's a sequel story. That's garbage. The sequel trilogy sucked, without any further thought or planning to, what that story actually is, how good that story actually is, or anything like that, and I don't think that's a reality Disney is prepared for. And as has been proven in other, franchise and parts of Disney, if the fans don't want it, you're going to know about it, and it's not going to go well for you. And there's definitely that possibility here. And, it terrifies me a little, because if things don't end up the way we want them to in this, it's damning for everything, and I'm worried. I'm worried about it, beyond that. What comes next? What's after it? This is the first time in a long time we've had things in the pipeline that are exciting, and one sort of bad one bad film can spoil the whole bunch here, and I'm worried. I'm worried about that loudmouth portion of the fan base that
I'm worried about the first one. You just hit the nail on the head. Like, when Mandalorian season 1 came out, pretty sure it came out
the launch day for Disney Plus.
Weeks before episode 9, I'm pretty sure.
I think
I want to
about
say
a month before. Roughly.
Yeah, I want to say we were,
it was November something.
Halfway through season 1, I think.
Yeah.
Before The Rise of Skywalker came out. And for me, I sit here and I go, Mando was big in season 1 and season 2. They were great. But they ran into the same problem every other TV show does that needs to take their time these days. And I'm talking the general audience, not diehards. It's too fucking long in between seasons.
Yeah.
It just is. And that's not just Star Wars. Almost all big properties are having this issue. But then you followed it up with season 3. And then the drama got out about Pedro Pascal, which everybody was denying, but ended up being true. That essentially they only wanted to pay him like a voice actor, despite him making some appearances here and there. And obviously he wasn't going to be okay with that with his skyrocket to fame. And it's not a hot property anymore. I don't think Grogu is hot anymore. Baby Yoda, if you will. I think they're trying to recapture some of that, but and I think Randy and I have had a couple of private conversations in the past several months about this, but like for me, this reeks of, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope both movies are really good, but this feels like trying to make a quick cash grab on what was supposed to be Mando season 4, essentially, and cutting a bunch of corners to get there, and not even really having a full cast, which appears to be the direction it's going. And then you have Starfighter that's set up to be this big, dare I say, Nolan-esque type event. The problem is, I think you run the risk of losing some of your audience for Starfighter if Mandalorian is just a bag of meh.
You're not wrong.
I mean, I'm trying not to be the pessimistic about this because I know that there will be some excitement for Mandalorian Grogu. I mean, I still hate the name, but it is what it is. They're not going to change it now. But I know I'm not expecting it to be and be like the most amazing thing out there. I expect it to just be fun. And I think at this point, given our lack of Star Wars content in the theaters, I just want to have fun. It doesn't need to be Oscar worthy. It doesn't need to sit there and make me rethink life and how I view Star Wars. It just needs to be fun. And I just need to enjoy characters that I like, that I've grown to like over the years, and hopefully leave us in a spot where we know we have an idea of where things are going in terms of Filoni's vision for the Mandoverse, since we know we're getting Ahsoka season 2 next year as well. So as long as I get that, I will consider it a success, even if it's not, blowing up the charts and making tons of money. If it makes just enough, I'm fine. I'm not going to hang my hat on it just because
you might need to, because if it goes out there and it's a bust,
I don't think it's going to be a bust. I don't think it's going to be a bust, but I also don't think it's going to sit there and like, hey, look at us. We're bringing in 800, 900 million, because movies aren't doing that nowadays. The filming in the film scene in general, we have great films out there. We have fun movies, and people just aren't going to see them anymore. And that's another thing we got to think about as well. People just aren't going to the theaters.
Yeah, business is down for sure. But I do think if this movie goes out there and let's say it just breaks even or loses a bit, that entire team's in trouble, it feels like. Every one of them, because Disney's shutting down a movie, and it apparently was the first time that had ever happened. To me, that's writing on the wall. That's get your shit together, or change is coming. We already know change is coming. Kathleen Kennedy is transitioning out. So, you brought up Ahsoka season 2, though, and I know we're on a bit of a tangent here, but honestly, ask yourself, what are you truly more excited for? The Mandalorian and Grogu next year, or Ahsoka season 2? And the answer is a complete gimme to me.
No, I mean, I'll give it to you. Ahsoka season 2, without a doubt, just because we're going to get to continue that story where we left off. That I got to know what happens, and that's what I'm saying. We need those are the types of characters, those are the types of stories we need, where we just like, I got to know, I need more. And Ahsoka season 1 gave us that taste of where it's like, I need more. I need more Baylan Skull. I need to know where this is going. I'm ready for more Anakin Skywalker because Hayden Christensen knocked it out of the park in season 1. I'm ready to see just how much these characters develop in season 2 because they did a good enough job in season 1 that I'm ready for more. I've been ready for more, and it feels like it's taken too damn long.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind which one I'm more excited for, and it ain't the film, and it ain't the thing I'm going to be watching in a movie theater. That's for sure.
And that's a problem. In my opinion, that's a problem.
Absolutely, it's a problem. But I think part of that problem is, I don't want to say solvable, but to a degree it is, because, you know, a good part of the lack of hype is the honestly lack of a good trailer. I mean, there's nothing to get hype about for Mandalorian and Grogu yet.
I was surprised the trailer was as bad as it was.
It was terrible. Like, from a trailer standpoint, it did nothing. Like, for me anyway, I know there are people who disagree with that and bully for them, but for me, it pushed my hype back, not pulled it forward. That's the opposite of what you want to have happen in a trailer. No matter the trailer, no matter the film.
I have the fix for their problem. All their answers done just like that. They need new characters. I do think doing what they're doing with Starfighter is a good idea when you know, okay, well, it's going to be a movie with a bunch of new characters for the most part. Let's go hire some big name talent to play these people, which is not typical of Star Wars. When rounding out a full cast, anyway. And, you know, go find Glenn Powell. Write him a cool, interesting character, and then throw the fucking checkbook at him and beg him, please, for the love of God, save us. By the way, the Running Man looks fucking spectacular.
I didn't even know that was a thing until I saw the trailer for it when I went to... Was it Fantastic Four when I messaged you? And I was like, this is a thing?
Yeah, I think it was... I won't lie, I forgot it was you that had messaged me that, but someone was at a movie earlier that did.
I was doing the trailers. I was in the movie theater and I pulled up the group. I'm like, Glenn Powell's doing a Running Man remake? What?
Yeah, there's a lot of people calling it a remake of the Arnold movie, but they've been on the press tour and they made it pretty clear that technicality speaking, it is, but this is more of a more true to the Stephen King novel interpretation than what the Arnold movie was. Yeah, so and Glenn Powell seems to be fucking good at everything he does. Like, if anybody hasn't seen Chad Powers yet, go watch Chad Powers. That's great.
I'm waiting until after football season to watch it.
It is definitely your kind of comedy.
I've seen enough from the trailers and what have you that I'm like, okay, no, I can get behind. This looks good.
His range is just so great. I think it'd be so wonderful. We're gonna have to cut some time here just because we've gone a little long on the first couple of topics. I do want to bring this one up. This might not be a good time cutter though. Rumors have been out there that they might be trying to basically take what was being worked on for Rogue Squadron, rather, the once Patty Jenkins movie, and turn it into a Disney Plus series. I can't help but wonder, fellas. I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be a little less time consuming for him. He would be fantastic with the just soldier to soldier mentality. And if they said it during the prequel or during the original trilogy as well, I'm sitting here and I'm going, Rogue Squadron is tailor-made to be a sequel to Andor, where you can involve some of those characters that they don't necessarily have to be pilots, but involved in the story, and you could have Tony Gilroy not have to be all over God's green earth and do something that's more, stage driven and CG driven, but still have his fantastic writing. Because like if you want Rogue Squadron to be worth anything at all, I think you need to have really good writing. Because yes, you're going to have visuals that people rely on that watch, but you can't just have the putty patrol going out there and flying a bunch of X-wings. You need characters that we're interested in, and this kind of feels like a little bit of a cheat code. That if they wanted to get Tony Gilroy back, that doesn't need to be as time consuming. He'd be perfect for it. I think it'd be a great Andor follow-up. Thoughts?
It's not the worst idea in the world. I find it amusing that Mandalorian and Grogu was a TV series stretched into a movie, and now Rogue Squadron is I shouldn't say stretched, I should say shrunk down into a movie, and Rogue Squadron is a movie being stretched down into a TV series. You can develop a movie to be a movie and a TV show to be a TV show. I'm just saying that's a thing that works.
I think it has a potential just because Rogue Squadron's always been a huge part of Star Wars, especially the fact that you not only got a couple of video games made out of it, but also they had the entire book series that's obviously Legends now. So it's not that Star Wars fans would not enjoy that. Because especially with today's special effects, some of the dogfights you'd get to see, oh my God, that would be just absolutely amazing. Obviously, some recast would be needed to be done, especially if they decide to stick with following Wedge around, which I'm all for, just because I think just to get to see the height of his piloting skills in today's day and age versus kind of how they were limited back then would be absolutely amazing and phenomenal. That would be so cool to see. But yeah, it's as long as the story's strong, why not? Let's go for it. Let's give it a shot and see where we go with this, because there's so many cool characters out there that we don't get to revisit but so often. And I think this would be a really good opportunity to bring up, a fan favorite character and how he, what happens after even Empire Strikes Back, considering that's when we really get, as fans of the original trilogy, that's when we first truly get introduced to Rogue Squadron.
Yeah, it's certainly exciting. I like the idea of it, because it does it. As far as stories go, I think Rogue Squadron lends itself better to, personally, to short form content, which you'd get from TV versus a movie. Because I don't know what story you would tell from a Rogue Squadron standpoint to make into a movie, because let's be real, the most famous Rogue Squadron missions, ones we've already seen.
I think a gimme one would be, like, especially if you did if this ended again. I'm not saying we've heard that anywhere. Yes, Rogue Squadron is being talked about as a series with them apparently right now, but it's completely us speculating on, well, could this be a way Tony Gilroy gets back involved? There is a big chunk of time between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back where you could place this show, where they're finding other bases and they're on the run. And there's just so much different things that you could do. And then, yeah, have your occasional big battle. But like I said, if the show's going to work, you're going to have it well written.
Absolutely.
All right.
And given the time frame, you can't be afraid to use the big three in cameos here and there and mentioning.
For sure. Like, you could theoretically do it with them only being referenced and seen in the background as occasional stuff, or he just passed Todd in the hallway or whatever. If you're that afraid of doing some big time damage with them, but we'll see. We're gonna save our Kenobi. What were our expectations of? We'll talk about that at the beginning of the Patreon show. next week, and or next week, tomorrow rather, which will have a special start time of 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night on our Patreon. We will be watching episode 1 of Kenobi, so stay tuned for that. I'm going to save game of the week too to cut some time because we're already an hour into this, fellas. Next up is the House of Stark, aka Westeros. Let's start with, we talked about a bunch of different prequel possibilities last week. We talked about if they were to do a Game of Thrones sequel, is animation possibly the best way to go?
I don't know about best, but I think easiest.
Yeah, that's what we came to last week between Randy, Zach, and I. We thought I personally think when doing a Westeros project, visuals are important, and I don't know if I've seen an animation that would do Westeros justice yet. I'm not saying that all animation's bad. There's a ton of it's great. Usually, stuff that never gets fucking watched can have much better animation than a lot of other mainstream stuff. But I'm going to flip that question though from Game of Thrones sequel to Game of Thrones prequel. Robert's Rebellion's been rumored for years. That's, for me, Robert's Rebellion, although there be no dragons, is the one show that feels like a slam dunk for Westeros. Not that they're really needing a slam dunk, because simply we know a lot of the characters. A lot of the characters are in Game of Thrones as older characters. You can go back and follow them all. It's not just a Jon and Ned thing. There's a bunch of people involved, So I would like to see it. At one point, it was heavily rumored. And also, it's a show you could do without having a ton of CG.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. It's certainly, personally, I think if they're going to go down that route, I like the animation idea because it's different. And it's not, I think, for me anyway, as a fan, I can say for certainly the last season of Game of Thrones did a lot of irreparable harm to my fandom. That even House of the Dragon hasn't managed to fix. Like, I am ambivalent right now. Like, I am, Dunk and Egg is in January 12th, 16th, something like that. I could care less. And that's unfortunate for me because, for a long time, Game of Thrones was it. It was my series. But that last season did a lot of irreparable harm to me as a fan. And they haven't managed to come back from that. House of the Dragon. But this is just me. This is my personal experience. Like,
I think a lot of people feel that way because of the finale, though. The biggest.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, for me, like when I say the last season, I'm like everything after The Longest Night. Like that was the peak.
Sorry, my bad. I thought you were referring to the last season of House of the Dragon because a lot of people were very unhappy with the finale and the fact that they come out and promised these 2 massive battle sequences last season, like again right from the showrunner's mouth, and we only got the one, and then set up for another that never ended up happening. That we now know will lead off season 3, but it's still a bad thing to put out there when you say it's going to happen and it doesn't.
For me, again, this is just my personal thing. I became so ambivalent that I don't think I've watched past the 2nd or 3rd episode of season 2 yet. I gave up because I don't know what it was. Maybe it was, the way they changed certain events in around that time period. And, it didn't, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those, like, and you know me well enough that, for me, I like the stories that were written when they're written well to be the stories they tell when they adapt them. I'm big on that. I'm big on, if you're going to adapt a novel, you adapt the novel. That's my biggest critique of the Harry Potter series of the movies is that they left so much in the books that would have helped a lot in the movies. It still delivered an enjoyable experience, but that's because I grew up with the characters. That the TV
I
series
would
now has
say
a chance to fix a lot of that.
I'd say it's the opposite problem for House of the Dragon, where there simply isn't enough there for a multi-season TV show of what's
Absolutely.
actually written in the book,
Absolutely.
and they have to add to get to it. Like rating wise, House of the Dragon was insane season one, still incredibly good season two. If you think they
I
want
think
to end the
that's,
show early, they don't. There's just not much story left to tell.
to me, that's the epitome of corporate greed, right? Like, it's part of the reason, like, I love the Lord of the Rings trilogy because it did exactly what I wanted to. It obviously had to take things out of the books, which is why you end up with extended cuts that are 4 hours long. But like, they still did the work to tell the whole story. Like, there's nothing major left out. But then came the Hobbit trilogy, where you took one book and turned it into a trilogy. No, that's not. I think they sucked because of that. And House of the Dragon is running square into that same issue, because they have source material that is so well written, so well told, that, like, even though I personally have a hard time reading George's writing style, there's still so much knowledge encapsulated in it that, you learn these things, you read these things, like, you read other people's summaries and things like that, and you slog through the books, that there's so much there that sometimes it's like, why are we adding stuff? Why are we creating new stuff? Just tell me the stories that I've been told. I don't know.
My hot take on that front is the Game of Thrones guys, obviously shortcuts at the end were not great. And I would agree that as soon as the Long Night episode ends in that season, it takes a dip. I think there are incredible things in that second to last episode, visuals, where I think it's called The Bells, the episode, where Daenerys goes off and it looks great, visually speaking, but leaves a lot to be desired in other areas. I think David and Dan, and I don't know why his name is slipping my mind right now, but the house runner, or showrunner of House of the Dragon, elevate George's material. I 100% believe that. And I think it's one of the reasons he is, and I totally believe this next one, scared shitless to release Winds of Winter. And I don't know if it's ever going to get done in his lifetime. I really don't. And I don't envy his position because, people can cry all they want about the later seasons of Game of Thrones. But the simple truth is, and really, they only cry about season 8. 8's the one that gets the hate.
Yeah.
Even though 7 was shorter too. There wasn't a whole lot of crying going on during season 7. There's a lot of high praise. But people got to remember the books right now. Season 6 doesn't even exist. That's not a thing. That's where we're at. The end of season 5 with the books. And it's like, how much of that are they actually going to be able to? I don't think it's ever going to happen, essentially, is what I'm getting at. And I do think that the showrunners have done a good job of elevating the content and the actors too. Like, both shows have been incredibly well cast, and Matt Smith is just iconic as Daemon. Patty Considine, sorry, Johnny, I'm about to drop a spoiler on you if you only watched the first few episodes of season 2, but is amazing in season 1. And then his unexpected return for a couple episodes of season 2 was everything I could have wanted it to be. And so they have other things carrying those shows. I just, going all the way back to Robert's Rebellion, I think it's the type of show that I don't want to see animation for it. I just don't. And I do think all those characters could be recast, because really in Game of Thrones flashbacks, they already were recast. Some of them anyway. Even Ned. but it just feels like budget wise, you could do that show for a lot cheaper than what you do House of the Dragon for, and still have most of the fan base engaged. And at least with Robert's Rebellion, in terms of literature that is written, there's quite a bit of it to follow. I'm not saying you're getting a 7-season show out of it, but you could probably get 3 seasons out of Robert's Rebellion.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of material there, that's for sure, because it is a story that's relatively all known. I don't think there are many major events in the rebellion that we don't know, that aren't written and accounted for. So it's not something that would have to be created really in any major way. Like, you'd have to flesh it out, obviously, as you do in anything else, but it's about, I don't want to say staying true to it, but from a certain point of view, that is what it is about. Is staying accurate to the material, and it's definitely an area where that is much easier done than a lot of, because there are so many major battles and major events that occurred that we know about, that seeing them would be huge. Like, I'd love to see the Battle of the Trident, and
Oh, that'd be huge. Like that would kind of like be the event, right? So
absolutely. So,
well,
there's
a combination of that and what goes on at King's Landing.
no, absolutely. But I mean, I think I think the Trident would probably be the ultimate battle, the final battle, as it were, the moment everything builds to. But there's so many other smaller events that occur. Like, was it the sacking of River Run?
That's one of them yet.
Like, there's so many major events that occur in that, and
there's Thoros with the flaming sword, and
exactly
the Knights Without Banners.
Brotherhood Without Banners.
Brotherhood Without Banners, yeah. They were a big part of it. Jorah has a part to play in it too. Like, there's a lot of people that you can go back to in this, and yet still have the Targaryen perspective right there front and center. There might not be dragons, but like, you got the Mad King there, and how many times I think we get the story twice in Game of Thrones about how Jaime stabs the Mad King.
Yep. And
shortly after, Ned walks into the room, and they talk about how Ned could have sat on the throne, and how he just wasn't interested in it. That's not who he was. So there's a lot they could do there. Randy, what about you, man? Where do you fall on Robert's Rebellion? There's a lot they can do with Westeros lore, but this feels like one where at least a lot of the roadmap is there.
So I'll start this off by saying that Johnny gave me the perfect reasoning for not reading any of the books until they're through making visual media for this, because it sounds like by reading everything first and then going into these things, I'm going to end up being extremely disappointed, and I don't want to do that. That's what I did with Harry Potter. Is I watched all the movies before I took in the books, and I got to experience everything like brand new by doing the books after the movies. It was probably the best decision I could have made for myself in that respect, and that's kind of what I'm doing here with Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon and everything. Like, I have yet to fully read the first book for Game of Thrones, but the thing is nothing's been ruined for me. And obviously when I've watched through it, nothing was ruined. I got to just enjoy the series for what it was. I didn't have the lofty expectations of knowing the source material, which really enhanced my enjoyment. Now, obviously, when I go back and read the books, I'm going to learn about the things that they left out and the things that they changed, and that's fine. It'll give me a chance to enjoy it all over again. And that's kind of how, and that's the same approach I've taken to the House of the Dragon, because I know there's books about that. So the idea here with Robert's Rebellion, I feel like would be since we know it's been mentioned many times in Game of Thrones itself, I feel like it's a no-brainer because it gives us characters that you grew attached to, and it gives us a different perspective on the younger version of the characters and how they started where they were to where and how they ended up starting to grow into the characters we actually came to really enjoy. And that sort of thing is always something I'm always for, because we'll go back to Star Wars. We knew Vader was Anakin Skywalker. We knew that he betrayed Obi-Wan at some point. It's based on what they were trying to say at the time. The prequel trilogy gave us that story and the visual medium of showing us everything that transpired to lead to that, the reasons why he became Vader. We knew the destination. It was more or less getting to experience the journey in a way that we hadn't before. And I feel like this with Robert's Rebellion, it's an opportunity to do that, to get to actually see the growth and the journey of some of these characters that were a part of our love for Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I think that I mean, I'm biased, guys. I want Robert's Rebellion really badly because I like a lot of those older characters. I like the stories we hear about young Robert and young Ned. Obviously, I love the story of what happens with Lyanna and the fact that they wouldn't have to like hide that shit. They could just have it out there. And obviously, they're going to want to add a twist or two we don't know about, and you know, and one of them is the actor who played Bran still looks young as shit. Does he get involved with it, right? Like, those are things that you could theoretically do anyways. But we will have to wait and see. All right, let's get to Gauntlet of Thrones here. It's a doozy. I swear, Zach is trying to hurt me at this point. He says it's AI that pulls these ones, but we will see. The Gauntlet of Thrones matchup this week is Season 4, Episode 8 of Game of Thrones, The Mountain and the Viper. If that title doesn't give away what the episode is, I don't know what will. It's Oberyn Martell against the Mountain in a fight for Tyrion's life, which is just a fantastic episode and a fantastic fight sequence. But that's followed up with Game of Thrones, Season 6, Episode 10, same title as the unreleased book, The Winds of Winter, where Cersei decides that she's going to blow to hell most of the, not the High Towers. Why can't I think of their names? It's slipping my mind, but blows apart, or blows up basically everyone to hell with the dragon fire, and blows the sept up, and the bell falls and squashes the people, and we got Jon's northern confrontation, which is, if I recall correctly, one episode after the Battle of the Bastards. So it's the episode where he, pardon me, I read that wrong. Jon's northern coronation. So yes, it is the episode where he's named King of the North, which, boy, he held on to that title long, didn't he? That's a hard matchup. Like, we've been over the fact that there are, between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, 92 episodes of content. And somehow this matchup gets pulled, which could easily be like a Sweet 16 or a top 8 matchup, and it's not. This is what Zach had to say. He will take the Mountain and the Viper. Actually, he didn't add more than that. The other thing I have is his Flixbusters thing. So he's going Mountain and the Viper. And I got to be honest, I love season 6, episode 10 of Game of Thrones. To a point, the Light of the Seven song that plays at the beginning of that episode for like the first 6 minutes was the intro for Zach and I's Game of Thrones related shows for a very, very long time. And it's just fantastic. That being said, that fight between the Viper and the Mountain and the emotions leading into it, and the Jaime and Tyrion scene before Tyrion goes out, just it's incredible. I'm going the Mountain and the Viper as well. Johnny, this is your first one of these, man. Where are you ending up, and why?
I don't want to say it's a tough decision, because if I'm really being honest, it's not. You know, one of them is supremely memorable to me long term. And one of them isn't like, it has a few elements of it, but it doesn't quite stick with me as well. But I think it's the Mountain and the Viper. You know, that is, I would argue, the most memorable one-on-one confrontation in the entire series. You know, for a lot of people, it's what propelled Pedro into the spotlight, you know, and I think it was a great battle. It was a great moment. And it, you know, again, harkening back to previous comments, it stayed true to the confrontation known, you know, like they didn't change it. They didn't write it differently. The confrontation in the series is, I don't want to say shot for shot, because I don't have that level of detail, but, you know, pace for pace, it stays true 1-to-1. And at that point in the series, there weren't as many things that were doing that. You know, that was kind of around the point where they started to veer and, you know, go off the books and move a bit away from the books and started leaving things out and changing things and consolidating characters. And, you know, some of the choices I agree with, a lot of the choices I don't, but this one stayed true. It's hugely monumental, and, you know, as memorable as Cersei blowing up the Sept and unleashing wildfire and Jon being crowned king, you know, they're not big. Like, the only thing you really remember is the wildfire. You know, Jon's coronation, okay, it happened for a little bit, but I mean, didn't matter long term. It didn't affect the story long term as much as it could, and I hope the books do that differently. Obviously, I have vastly different expectations.
He just doesn't bring him back out of spite.
That would
you
change.
Want Jon? No Jon.
That would be huge.
Fuck them fans.
Oh God, I hope not.
You couldn't leave me alone and let me write my book? So what if it took me almost 2 decades? Plus, possibly at this rate.
I still think, you know, and I agree with the sort of growing sentiment that the character he killed, that he now needs, he's realized who that is, and I think it's someone relevant to a story not yet told in the I think it's Maester. It's Maester. It's Jon's blood. It's his relative. You killed the Targaryen, and now you need someone to explain to Jon what it means to be a Targaryen. Explain things like that. And you realize, crap, nobody can do that.
Well, we can always say this. Had he joined the one true King Stannis, things might have been different.
We're not doing that. We're not going down
Zach's
that road.
not here. I'm going to go on about Stannis as much as I want. Zach just randomly pops in. Shut the fuck up with Stannis.
Stannis is the biggest asshat in Westeros, and that's saying something.
Well, Randy, the vote's already decided, but where would you have fallen with these 2 episodes?
So obviously, so let's put it this way. You're talking about an episode that comes after one of my favorite episodes in the Battle of the Bastards. And to have that fresh in my mind and go into the next week to see that episode, whereas yes, Cersei's moment is memorable, but it's not as vivid as seeing the Mountain versus the Viper. And like that's one of those things, like the minute I saw that as a matchup, instantaneously I had the whole vision in my head just erupt of watching the Viper's skull get crushed. Like the even though the battle itself was absolutely amazing and well choreographed, that one singular moment that just always stuck with me is that head crushing moment, which was done absolutely well. I was blown away by it. Watching everybody that was watching it with me kind of turn their head and be like, "Oh my god, that's disgusting!" I'm like, this is fucking cool. So that's why for me that's really going to be, just to kind of keep it short. I'll do the Mountain versus the Viper just for that very reason. Is the fight was amazing. There was a lot of impactful moments, some really great dialogue between characters, and we got to see one of the coolest head crushing scenes I think I've ever seen ever on TV.
You can think of others?
Between a lot of the zombie movies I've seen, yeah, I can think of others.
It's truly poetic because all season long, Oberyn Martell, the Viper, goes on about how the Mountain raped his sister, killed her, and murdered her children. And that's all he wants. He wants him to admit it. And he does admit it, but he admits it as he's crushing the Viper's skull. Like that's Game of Thrones in a nutshell. Like you want something, you desperately, want your happy endings, and it's not really meant to be. Even the finale, when you think about it, there's some happy parts to it, but I think a lot of people wanted to see Jon and Dany, despite them, doing the taboo thing. It is Westeros, and we have a whole show of the taboo thing now. I think they wanted them to have their happy ending, and that's not what happened. So I did not see this vote going 4-0. I did not. I thought there was a chance 3-1. I thought there was a chance it could go 2-2, and we'd have to get a fifth party involved. But 4-0 speaks volumes of how integral that Viper and Mountain fight was. And I do agree. I can't remember if it was Johnny or Randy that said it, but in terms of one-on-one fights, yeah, that might be the best in Game of Thrones.
That was one of mine.
All right. Let me pull up the show notes here as I no longer have access to the laptop. So bear with me. Tune in next week where we will have a Star Wars Wastelands 10-year reunion show. Unfortunately, the Gauntlet of Thrones will not be a part of that episode, so it'll be a week off for the Gauntlet, and that might be a good thing at this point. We're going to squeeze in like literally 3 minutes of wrestling talk because I got to send a message. And it's very simple. What happens with Jericho, fellas? Is he WWE bound or is he sticking with AEW? Predictions.
He's going to WWE. I think it's time. He's done everything he can do in AEW. He helped put them on the map by being their first champion. It's time for him to take his final lap and retire in WWE and then get inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really anything, like Randy just said, there's nothing left for him in AEW so much.
He kind of did it all. Like, he was massive part of the launch of that whole company.
He legitimized it on the national stage. He legitimized it. Anyone who says differently is lying. Or, a tribalistic idiot. But he did it. He did everything there. There was nothing left. Sure, you could keep sort of doing the learning tree stuff and helping him, and using him to make the next generation. But, that really doesn't benefit him at this stage. Now, I think personally, and this is just, I'm going to go ahead and say it, for the end of his career, going to the WWE is the wrong decision. Strictly from the standpoint of, I don't think they know how to book that. I really don't.
Well, prime example, it's probably what most people consider a small thing, but I think when you look at it, like, don't get me wrong, I love Jericho's WWE theme. I always will. But I feel like this would be the perfect opportunity to bring back Judas in a last WWE run. And I bet you they won't. The same way Rusev had to be Rusev. And seemingly can't get over for the life of him now, even though I quite like him.
Well, when you're booked to lose 3 out of every 4 matches, it's hard to get over. But don't tell Hunter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I watched the first 45 minutes of tonight, and boy, was he stroking himself quite hard in that fucking opening promo. I just kind of thought to myself, dude, bad luck with what's currently going on. The higher ticket prices, even than what it's been the last 2 years. Who thought it could get any higher? Well, TKO decided they wanted to push the envelope and raise it any more because they don't like sellouts, because that means they're leaving money on the table. And they were already asinine prices before, and now a new jack in prices, and people have finally said, you know what? No, your show is not good enough to justify this amount of money. And good on everybody for taking that stance.
I think inherently it's the quality issue, only because it's not, it's not about how good or bad the booking is. It's the cost effectiveness of the booking, and it's the difference between, can I afford to take my family to an arena, park at the arena, buy a souvenir at the arena, and
I'll answer it for us. No, it's not.
And that's the issue. That's the issue. Like, they're pricing themselves out of their future market. They are letting the UFC model run the day.
Oh,
we can do that.
For sure.
We can do that. We can jack ticket prices as high as we want, and as long as people will pay for them, they'll still come. But the problem is, the UFC audience is the 21 to 40-year-old man who, has that excessive income. The WWE audience is the family of 4 that can't afford to spend a month's rent check for a 2-hour show. And that's what it boils down to. That's what it is. That's the reality of the situation. And
for sure. But you know what? When the product is good, though, and you feel like there's something you can't miss, you find a way to get there. I mean,
you
the
will
Blue
try
Jays
harder.
are
I will agree with that. You'll try harder
of that. They deserve what they're getting right now.
I think that's the difference, right? You can do that with a WrestleMania, like jacking the ticket prices up for WrestleMania. You can do that, and I hate it, but you can do that because it's the World Series, it's the Super Bowl, it's the Stanley Cup Final.
I hate that it's going to be in Saudi, because that's just fucking over the US fans hardcore. So
I think they're doing that once and they'll never do it again.
Because I hope they do that never again for the Royal Rumble too, because that's another one that they're sending there. I
believe that the smart thing to do is an AEW stadium show that weekend.
It sounds like a lot of the smaller promotions and AEW are talking about doing something that weekend.
And I think that's the smartest thing they can do, because it will remind them.
It'll be good for the in-person. It'll be good for the in-person audience. It's not going to change anything in terms of how people are watching it on TV. Though.
Oh no, absolutely not. There's no doubt about that. But it will remind them that the world does not start and end with them. There are other options, and the fans
feels like a different version of the Disney story we were talking about earlier. It's the
inverse. Yeah. The thing that could have actually killed out their competition is the thing that's going to make their competition thrive. The attendance pendulum is about to swing in a big way.
I don't think it's going to be very good for either.
Why pay $400 for a ticket when you can just spend $80 and go see AEW or TNA or somebody, GCW, and GCW is probably even cheaper.
Absolutely cheaper.
So it's just frustrating because Cena's last match is in DC. I would have loved to go to that. However, I'm not going to pay almost $500 for basically being at the very tippy top of the arena behind a pillar. It's just not going to happen. I'll just watch it on
a normal
TV.
Leaf game.
But you see what I'm saying? That if it's like a few years ago, before like the sale and whatnot, I bet you maybe $80 for the ticket. Now
to sit in a good seat?
No, to sit in the nosebleeds. The good seats. The good seats.
I don't think you're spending $80 to sit in the nosebleeds.
Back then you would have, because I think when I went to WrestleMania 40, back up.
Well, WrestleMania is a different beast.
Well, but I'm saying my friends and I went to the SmackDown before that had the Hall of Fame and induction and the whatnot. So that was, I think, 120, 130 for high up and for a SmackDown.
WrestleMania week is a different animal, though. Like that's.
Oh, I paid $600 for my seats for both nights. So
the SmackDown before and the Raw after are definitely priced more in the pay-per-view stratosphere, and I think they should be. It's relevant. It's important.
And TKO struck while the iron, while the iron was hot, while the product was great, where they were at the tippy top of their game, and now, ever since 40, it's hard to. The product just hasn't been as good, and it keeps. To me, the stories aren't as great. Some of the matches just aren't good, and now you have them trying to jack up the prices to UFC level, and that's just not going to work.
It's 2002 again, and they don't realize it.
The last point I'll make, to look at both sides of the coin, the one thing I do like is you're not in the Vince McMahon era anymore. I'm all for new named pay-per-views as long as the traditional big ones are staying. Like Money in the Bank's a gimmick, so that's probably not going anywhere. But I'm referring to the big four, right? But if you want to rename,
it'll be gone pretty soon if Hunter has his way. They're already moving it to September.
Oh, Money in the Bank?
Money in the Bank next year is September 6th.
Wasn't it previously like right before SummerSlam?
Traditionally, it started at WrestleMania. First 4 years, I think, were at WrestleMania. 21 through 25, I think, were at WrestleMania. And then they moved to the pay-per-view, which was traditionally in end of May, early June.
Yeah, because I think it was a summer pay-per-view for the most part, because it gave
a little higher
whoever won it an entire year roughly
higher, hun.
To actually cash it in.
You had most of the calendar year to worry about it because you had it in place by SummerSlam. But now you're moving it to September, and that's nobody's going to care about that. Not as much.
I mean, they'll never do it anymore, but I preferred Money in the Bank as the opener at Mania. That's the way I liked it. But
it made sense because the wrestling year starts and ends at WrestleMania. And it was the right
they can
point.
Still do that. Like, I know they have it as their own event now, but like, why not have it at Mania? And I know you do a women's one now, but you just say you can't do the women's one at SummerSlam, or vice versa.
I think the inherent nature of a 2-night WrestleMania that's not going anywhere, I think moving them would be fine. You could do the men's one night and the women's the other night. And it would give them something to do on a card that's otherwise not well booked for the extras and the not in the big program people.
Well, we are going to shift gears here and move on to our House of Haddonfield segment, where we talk about Halloween, horror, and more. Thrilled with some of the stuff that's come out with the Halloween game that I don't think we've actually had an opportunity to talk to Johnny about yet. Our guest hasn't been on either. He's a mod here at the channel and a sponsor. He will be joining us. We're also going to talk about that Scream 7 trailer. So if you haven't seen it yet, go see it. Now's the time to do it. And then Randy and I don't know if Dustin's caught up on Welcome to Derry or not. I probably asked him and don't remember the answer, but I know Randy and I are, so we're going to talk about that. But without further ado, his intro to the show. Dustin, what's going on, man?
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure to have you, dude. I want to get your perspective on this first because I feel like Johnny, Randy, and I, and you would know more than most, have talked about the Halloween game ad nauseum for the last year. So for you, a consumer, a fan of the franchise, do you own I think it's only for the new one. So do you own a Xbox Series X or PS5?
Oh yeah, I have both. Most of the time, one of them is not being used.
Sounds
Primarily
like
was
my house.
Xbox, but with Game Pass raising their prices, I was kind of like hesitant to keep it. But yeah, I have the gaming consoles.
Let me tell you what happens at my house if I get rid of Game Pass. Two little munchkins that run around here are gonna kidnap me, and it'll be the last time you guys see or hear me.
What about kidnapping? I think we'd find you buried in the woods behind your house after the bears find your carcass.
Yeah, there's plenty of that going around. Look, we don't know how much this game's gonna be. I know there's some people that are convinced this is gonna be a $40 game. I'm telling you, with everything, even though it might not be the budget of a lot of AAA games, uh, with everything that they're doing with this, specifically I would argue they've had more focus on the story mode than any other element of the game so far. I don't think it's going to be a $40 game. It might not be. I'm working off Canadian prices here, so forgive me if it's not on par with what you guys are. But like, while it might not be a game that's $99.99 up here or $89.99 up here, but it might be a game that's $79.99 up here and $69.99 down there. Like, have you heard enough at this point where you're willing to drop $60 to $80 on this thing?
I think I am. I think at this point, because I love the franchise so much and the things that I'm hearing about not only the asymmetrical part of the game, but also the care that seems like they're focusing so much more on the single player aspect of it that I just want to kind of see what they've done with the game and the single player aspect as far as, you know, being in Haddonfield. Kind of, we've always seen through the movies and other stuff just those little snippets of Haddonfield, but being able to like zoom in and see how all the roads connect and how it's going to be that kind of period piece. I think it's going to be great just to even just explore as Michael and kind of live out your, you know, like the 2018 version where he's just kind of going from house to house and taking out people. Not only that, I think the really interesting part is going to be seeing them expand on the lore, right? Because it takes place that night, 1978, but also you're going to see some stuff that happens after the fact. So for me, I think it's worth I think it will be a $70 game or whatever that equivalent is for you, but I'm definitely up to spending that money to play that.
No, Randy and I had a brief moment to touch on it last week, but I want you and Johnny to have the floor here. We'll start with you and go to Johnny. The big thing we'd been talking about for weeks how they intended to reveal something on Halloween, and even I'll admit I thought we would get something a little longer. But even though we didn't, what they did go out and do is say, "Hey, you know, Loomis and Marion show up to Smith Grove, and Michael's already out. You know, we see the wrench in the hand off the window. Obviously, it's not supposed to be a wrench, but it's very clear that it's there. And all the other patients just out wandering around. But you never find out, well, how the hell did that happen? How did they get out? What transpired for that? You're going to get to play through that through Michael's eyes in the game. You're going to get to go to Phelps' garage and, you know, how did the truck end up on the side of the road and the rabbit in red? some other events during the movie. I believe the hardware store was also mentioned. And then we're going to get to play after, I don't know for how long, but after the end of Halloween 1, that also isn't supposed to directly line up to Halloween 2. So a new continuation again from Halloween 1, narratively speaking, when it comes to the story mode. What does this do for you guys? Does it excite you?
You want me to go first? I can go.
Yeah, you're the guest, man.
I think it's going to be really interesting to see parts of the things that we didn't see to be able to fill in some of those gaps. I think that if they've taken the time to kind of craft this and make something that we're interested in playing, like seeing some stuff that we hadn't seen before, I'm all for that. I mean, I could see the game starting off with a driving simulator where Michael's learning to drive and Loomis is in the back seat. But no, I think it's kind of a double-edged sword because fans of the game might have a problem with it if you show too much and you're seeing stuff that maybe isn't canon, but maybe that's also a good thing to be able to say, look, we need to take some creative freedoms with it and be able to tell a story that's not just a rehash, so we can set up some of the stuff where it happens where maybe you show how he escaped and then what he was doing on his way to the garage where he got the overalls, then going to the hardware store and getting the ropes, knives, and mask. I think that'll be pretty cool, maybe from a perspective of you putting the mask on the first time. That kind of stuff does have me excited as a fan, just to see, again, an alternate timeline, right? It's not going to tie into Halloween 2. It's probably not going to tie into Halloween 2018 where he gets apprehended, potentially, who knows? So it'll be kind of fun to see, like, what would a continuation of this story be in an alternate timeline. So yeah, that has me pretty excited to see what the potential could be for that. If done well, if it's not just super like ham-fisted or beat you over the head with nostalgia. I'm hoping that I have a feeling they won't do that, but I'm pretty excited for that.
It's gonna be very interesting playing as Michael Myers in a basically a nightgown, right? Like, going to be some interesting character models that come out of the story mode. So, in fact, like one would think if he's going to the hardware store after the coveralls, that well, we might not see the front of his face. That we're gonna see maskless Michael in the game too. So, like a bunch of different things that they're throwing at you here. Johnny, you've been talking about this with us for a year now, man. That might have been the first time you've heard those details. I don't know, but where are you at with this? Again, we know you're the, maybe the glass half empty guy where you need to see it before you believe it. But just in terms of what they're saying, how are you feeling about the story mode at this point?
Well, I mean, like I've said, they're saying all the right things, and that's important. Like, and the things that they have shown us have looked good. There hasn't been anything that I've been like, I don't think this is for me. The closest thing to that was sort of when they showed off the shape, right? And the teleporting of it all. Like, that's the only thing where I've kind of been like, okay, that's not exactly what I want, but it's something that you can't really have a natural analog, right? So it's something that it was going to have to be different, and they went about it in a good way. So even that's not it's not detrimental to my interest. It's more of a, well, that's how they're doing it. Interesting. The story is going to be, I'm intrigued by the story, as long as the story is good. It could just as easily be a bad Michael story, and that's concerning. But it could just as easily be fun and different and not something we've ever experienced before. And that's what I want. That's what I'm after. And, filling in some of the blanks for what went on that night, I don't mind that. I don't have an issue with that because they are question marks. It's not like these are things that we have answers to in the canon that are like, oh, well, we know what happened, because we don't. Getting those answers, I'm excited for, as long as they fit within the story. You've pointed out a few elements from the movies that we might get the answers to that I'm like, okay, no, I like that idea, because there are questions we don't have answers to, and I like getting answers to those questions. So I don't know. It's like, you're right. I'll believe it when I see it. And once we get, a story trailer that sort of goes into the story, I will definitely have, hopefully, the same opinion that, what they're showing us looks good.
So
But
that might come sooner than this. This would be a new piece of info here. And I'm saying take it with a grain of salt, because this is more speculation on my behalf than we've heard this from one of our sources. But to give them credit where it's due, Slasher Talk or Slasher Radio, it's one of the two. Those fellas over there mentioned this possibility too. We think they might have something at the Game Awards, and we think it might be about the story.
Yeah, I think the timing would line up with it being in December, right? That's when the Game Awards are.
Yeah.
And I think that would, and the game's coming out in October, so I think that timeline.
September, actually. September.
Oh, September. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think they were gunning for October to begin with, and thought, well, if we get it out there in fairly early September, then you have the build up to Halloween to really pick up on sales, which I do think is a good idea. I think that's the right window for the game, in my opinion, because you'll have people to get it on launch, but you're gonna have people to get it closer to Halloween as well. If there's good word of mouth. If it's bad word of mouth, then who knows? But I wanted to pose this question to you guys, and we'll get Randy in on this one too. So I just mentioned how the end of Halloween 1 will not be the end of the game. I would assume it's going to be close to the end. And they've already said they're going to release more content as time goes on. And I don't know if anyone else has covered this, but I can tell you that in the story mode of the game, there'll be more than just a couple of new characters introduced, but there will be a couple of new characters introduced that play a more significant role than you would think there's space for, is what I've been told. And kind of makes me go, huh, is that where they turn their direction to after Halloween 1? And the more I thought about it, I sat there and went, well, this sure sounds a whole heck of a lot like their original idea for the Halloween TV series, doesn't it? Like, shockingly close. And I can't help but wonder, because remember, that Halloween series was supposed to be a period piece at the beginning of its development, and last we heard it was not. I can't help but wonder if what they were doing for that got tied into the game some. And if that might be their original direction, which we believe included Russellville, ends up being the continuation after that. Can't help but think that the ideas have been cherry-picked a little. Randy, we'll start with you and go counterclockwise around the table.
It wouldn't shock me if they decided to go that route, just because, if it was a good story to begin with, why not? At least whomever was originally writing that, at least is going to get the opportunity to see their vision come to life in some way, shape, or form, even if it's not 100% the way they originally intended it to. As we all know, games have writers, so it would make sense to be like, hey, can we use this idea? We've read your script. We thought it was great. Can we kind of pick some characters here and there, some ideas here and there, and use it for our story mode for the game that we're making? I mean, I'd be all for it, just because at least that way, some of these ideas that we've read rumors about, or even snippets have come out about, we actually get to see it even if fully realized, even if it's not a TV series, because that's one of the beautiful things about video games is a lot of the story stuff in there could be something you could put into a movie, or put into a TV series, because we've seen it done before. This is just going in reverse in a way of taking it from what should have been on the small screen and putting it into a video game. If that's the route they're going, and if that's something that we're going to get, go for it, because I think it's going to help the game grow all the better. Just because at least that way we're getting some new and interesting characters, we're getting new story, new lore, and yeah, so it's come out of a video game, but still it's gonna be a lot of fun to play. So I'm excited to see what they actually have in store.
Dustin, how about you, man?
Yeah, I think if they're smart and they can like Randy said, cherry pick from stuff that's already out there. I mean, from a cost savings perspective, I'm sure they have a ton of material. I mean, they're working with John Carpenter, right? I mean, I guess that was talked about, that John Carpenter was involved in some level, and I think the studio Malika Cod, right? If they can look through and say, okay, maybe we're not going to make the TV show, but we had all this content. Let's look through it and see if there's some good ideas to then maybe say, if they're going to do a sequel to this game and start its own timeline, maybe it's like, hey, let's stick to the original as much as we can in that timeline, in that period. And then, like a lot of the movies have done and started to do, where it's just like, let's go back to the beginning and tell its own branching path, right? This is a new version of what happened, not tied to Halloween 2 or 2018. It's just its own story. And they can say, let's set this up so that, you know, we can let people who love the franchise, that first movie especially, live in that world. And then we can, at the end, maybe like you said, near, you know, a last hour or two, start transitioning to be another story that they can tell with DLC. And, you know, I'm okay with that. I know people are usually like, DLC is a bad thing and they're not shipping a complete game. But in this case, if they want to take their time and say, like, what happens to Michael? Does he just disappear? Does he just keep moving? That's always been kind of the question, right? Where does he go? Like, is he dead? Where is he? You know, he just hibernates for this long and then pops back up. So I think it'd be kind of interesting to see, like, okay, in this version, we're going to now head off in this direction, and we're going to tell a story that's tied to these characters in this new location and not be tied down by anything in particular. And I think it's smart to use some of the ideas that are already out there. It couldn't hurt. Again, they can look and say, yeah, this makes sense. This is a good idea. This is a bad idea. Let's avoid that. Unless they try to just stick to very little interpretations and expansion, and try to keep this first game really grounded. And then with DLC, they can explore stuff. So, but I think it makes sense to do that, to branch it out, to have a potential DLC or a second game. Because if this game does well, they're going to want to cash in. And, you know, once one game is made and it does well, the next one is inevitable.
Yeah, I think there'll be boatloads of DLC before you see another game. I think there's some people underestimating how long this game's been in the works. I'm trying to think of the first time that I mentioned it, and I want to say it was on a stream. Oh, it was before the Haddonfield and Beyond days. It's been in the works from a pre-production stage for, it's got to be close to 4 years now.
Well, maybe the second game will be out before GTA 6, so
might not be a hard bar to meet at this point. Johnny, how about you, man?
I mean, I think the nature of this style of game certainly lends itself much more strongly to DLC as the method with which it succeeds long term. I think, you know, we've talked about it before, but I think Dead by Daylight is sort of that prime example of, you know, the success of a game like this, where you know, it's not so much a race to the next one as it is race to the next bit of content. And you make your money long term that way, through consistent DLC and additional content like that. That I think that's what we're going to see more of, assuming it is successful at launch. You will get the long term DLC is as the method of success, adding more that way. So I think that's what we'll see. I think DLC is the way it will carry on long term. I to the point that personally I wouldn't be inherently surprised if this isn't sort of a one and done, and then you have additional DLC. I think that's where most of everything will come from, right? So
Now, do you think, considering how much we talked about the Halloween TV series on here, does it feel like some of those ideas have been cherry picked?
I wouldn't be surprised. It does. It is a very Hollywood thing to do, as far as that goes, right? Like getting, recycling ideas and things like that is it's far more common than anyone would ever give it credit for in Hollywood or Hollywood circles, because you always want to be thought of as the originator, when in reality I don't think Hollywood has had a true innovator in a very long time, So yeah, I think there's absolutely going to be things cherry picked, not just from what could have been the series had it been a period piece, but from other projects left behind. That I wouldn't be too surprised that those of you who have read all of the Taking Shape books don't find things from there as well. So yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of the story that I think fans and I use the prime example of this, Sean, who will be like, oh well, this is from that, and this is from that, and this is from that, and this idea was that idea, and and that, and to me, not an issue. I don't care. I think there are going to be some things you might see that you'll be like, man, I wish this had been a movie instead. But what those are, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But I am confident that there will be things that's, aren't original to their plans.
Yeah, I mean, it could go so many different directions at this point. I just think what we're seeing is positive at the moment, and I think this franchise is in need of that, an injection of positivity. And I forget who brought up the John Carpenter note, but I'll say this about John Carpenter. You didn't see his most recent interview where he says he doesn't care about any of the Halloween sequels other than his paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I'm saying, and I'm not trying to be, fucking piss on anyone's parade, but you don't need John Carpenter to make more Halloween. You don't. Now, if he wants to make the music with his son and his godson, then by all means, make the fucking music, because that shit is flawless in the most recent trilogy. But outside of that, you're basically just paying to attach his fucking name to it. But the problem is they want more than that. They want his input on things, and it's like, I don't think you can trust John's input anymore.
Yeah.
Creatively on that level, and he's telling you straight to your face and in public that that's the case. So I think it's time to move away from the Carpenter thing and stand on your own 2 feet a bit. There's a bunch of intelligent people that work for Trancas. They can figure it out.
I mean, it just goes to show how many times you've seen other directors tied to stuff, or like Steven Spielberg, and then you see a movie like The Jurassic World, and it's like executive producer Steven Spielberg, and you sit there and go, well, what did he like approve a drawing or like rubber stamp something? And it gets to the point where it's like you said, you don't need to have these people. There's people that have original ideas, and there's new talent, and there's new ideas. You don't need to be anchored to one person just because that person made one of the most defining versions of, with Halloween. You can't tie yourself to that anchor forever. And it's, I think you can move past it. And I think, he's made it very clear that he's just about the paycheck. So
Yeah.
I think it's more of a good faith, like,
I don't think he's going to mail it in whenever they ask him to do the score, though. I think he's going to put his best foot forward. I think he loves playing music almost as much as he loves playing video games. And, I just think it's at that time. He's put on a pedestal, rightfully so, but I think we're at that time. Scream 7 trailer, brief thoughts, guys, before we move on here. I'll give mine. We'll go clockwise this time. Me, Johnny, Dustin, and Randy. There's a lot of people complaining about not seeing much in it. I like that they didn't show a whole heck of a lot, and that you could basically pick a lot of what they showed out of maybe 2 sequences. But this feels very grounded and gritty, and not like a pop show of, visual imagery that is, becoming too much. And I thought that when I watched this, I mean, obviously people are picking apart the Matthew Lillard line at the end. But I like what I saw here quite a bit. And I think it's a positive. Like, they went pretty big scale with the last one. Yes, it's supposed to be New York, but in reality, it was filmed in Montreal, Canada. But it was a bigger setting. This feels more smaller and intimate, almost Halloween 2018-esque. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. I won't say I was blown away by it. I wasn't. But I thought it was really solid, and I found myself sitting there going, yeah, I pay money to go see this in theaters. Johnny?
I was intrigued by the trailer. Going into it was definitely afraid they were going to give away too much, especially on, the Matthew Lillard front. And in reality, they told us nothing on the Matthew Lillard front. Like, they really showed us nothing on that. And I like that. I come from the less is more camp as far as trailers go. And this was definitely that. We got an idea of what was going on. We got an idea of, what's motivating Sydney and that sort of thing. But, we didn't get, there's no sort of, oh, well, the Ghostface is blank. You don't really have that this time. You just have your question marks. And then you do get you get Stu's voice there at the end for a line, which provides zero context. It gives you nothing. It just sort of tells you that what we already knew, he's a part of this story. How, why, where, all of those questions are still left to our imagination. That's what I want. I don't want the, I don't want the trailer to put it all in front of me and be like, okay, here's the here, where, and the what. You know what I mean? Like, here's how he survived, and it's in the trailer. I didn't want any of that. We got enough that I'm interested. I don't know if it's, go to theater level interest, but it is definitely go out of my way to see it, once it is available. If not full, go to a theater.
Johnny needs it to be the level of a Nightmare on Elm Street remake to go to the theater.
You remember that bear finding you in the woods thing I said your kids would do earlier? I'm thinking now I might be responsible for the bears finding you in the woods.
Man, I will say this. We talked about the rumor months ago about how all these returning people might just be fucking AI shit. I think you're going to have the fan base pretty angry if it's just AI with Stu, because one, not only do you get the line, but two, you get his house, and three, again, if you go back and watch, you don't need to, watch too closely to realize Ghostface is pretty fucking tall walking away from that fucking burning house there in the background. And Matthew Lillard's not a short guy. So the combination of the three things and how heavily the house is featured in it too, um, I I feel like you're playing with fire if you don't introduce Stu in this one. But knowing that Scream 8's basically going to start filming as soon as Scream 7 comes out, I hope we get a cliffhanger ending. Don't end with everything happy, positive, which is how every Scream movie ends. Give us a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Dustin?
Yeah, no, I agree. I enjoyed the trailer. I thought we see so many trailers now where you can literally, if you want to, pick it apart and say this is the first act, second act, third act. Then you can pretty much say like, okay, I think this is the killer, like based on the clues they're giving you in the trailer. And this one did enough to kind of set up where we're at, which, geez, Sydney needs a break, man. It's like this lady's been dealing with this for how many years? Like, I just keep thinking about it. Like, I would like to see her character finally get some rest after this. Maybe I get they need to have her and Gail, and maybe they don't. But I think it's set up enough to where you had enough questions where I'm like, I'm okay with almost no more trailers. Like you set it up, you've kind of given us some enough to think about. As far as the Stu stuff, I was seeing online it could be not that it was taken from the first movie, right? Like the line that they used was taken from the first movie. Was that correct? Or was that new dialogue?
I'm not sure. It might be a line from the first movie, and I mean, it could be AI altered, but
Right.
it sounds like current day Matthew Lillard.
Okay.
I thought it was a fresh recording when I heard.
Okay. So if that's the case, then and I hope they're doing it that route. I just don't want it to be, when they started talking, when it was confirmed he was going to be in it, I was thinking, are they going to go the route of what they did with Billy in the other movies where he's a ghost? And I was kind of like, well, they've already done that with Billy and there was a reason for that. So now don't retread that same territory and go like, oh, it's a ghost talking to someone else that's influencing them to be the killer. I think if 8, don't know much about 8. If they can do 7 to where it's like this version is finally comes to a conclusion, I think it makes sense to have Stu, going back to the beginning, to a character that, fans love. And I think he could bring a really good edge to this character, and we find out maybe what he was going through, where he's been, and then also setting it up for, okay, after this, it kind of concludes this saga, and they can explore other additional things in later movies. It probably won't happen. It'll probably be tied to 7 and other characters, but I enjoyed the trailer. I thought it like you said, it had a more grounded approach to it. It felt more like we're going to tell this story of Sydney coming together and her daughter, and it's going to be a little bit more intimate. It's not going to be hundreds of characters that you're like, okay, this new group is introduced. I'm really excited. I'm for the fact that I'm still invested after a while of not being invested and getting back in on 5 and 6. I'm pretty excited for 7.
Randy?
So Scream itself hasn't really been like one of my big go-to franchises to watch. I mean, I am caught up on the movies. Some were really good. Some were just like, what were they thinking? After watching the trailer, because obviously going into 7, you got to go, okay, what haven't they done? What could they possibly do as a plot device to bring us back to all this? And then introducing a daughter. So that really helps, because now it's like, okay, there's potential stakes in it. And watching the trailer, it just feels frenetic enough that something is going to happen, like they're hinting at something's going to happen. Like this could be a passing of the torch type movie where maybe we finally see Sydney die. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they go about this. I like that the trailer didn't give too much away. I think that's something that Hollywood's done a little bit too much of in recent memory, of just giving away too big a plot points, or taking surprises that could have been saved for the movie, and just, oh, by the way, this is so and so's in the movie, and you could have just been like sitting there going, thanks. Now, why am I going to the movie theater to see this? It's so I'm really curious to see overall how they incorporate Matthew Lillard back into this. It's obviously, you really haven't seen him since the very first movie, and to have him come back now, or at least have something representing him coming back now, because obviously we don't know. We know he's involved, but we don't know in what capacity. I think that's going to be a real interesting switch up for us in general, because it'll be the first time they've treaded on this character in a while, whereas having ghosts and stuff in the drive other characters is very different, but still, I think that's played out. It's overdone, and I think it's time. And I think you're right, Sean. I think this one's gonna be very more grounded in reality, and I think it's time to get back to that. And I think it seems like this is where we're going, and I'm really curious to see, because beyond the first couple movies, I just haven't been as big a fan. I like the first one, and the second one's not too bad, but beyond that, it just seems like they're just rehashing some of the same stuff over and over again. So I'm hoping and praying that this one does stay a little more grounded in reality, and gives us something really gritty that we've been missing in some of the previous films.
Travis says what's important is, well, the people who follow behind the scenes here, the casual audience just knows this is a follow-up to 7, so I think they're writing it as such. I think it means 6. But yeah, you know what? I trust Kevin Williamson to do something where diehards get something out of it, but also the casual audience member gets something out of it. And yeah, we are, Johnny, to answer your question there. That is going to do it, though, for that topic. Let's take a moment to thank Dustin for coming out and joining us for a couple of topics tonight, man. Telling you, when you get a chance, watch Welcome to Derry. It's good. We're going to spoil something here, so fair warning, but we won't get into exact events. But let's just say Welcome to Derry is not the title is not a true representation of everything the show encompasses.
Yeah, I've seen the first 2 episodes. I'm actually going to watch the 3rd episode now. Really enjoyed it, so I'm excited to see what you guys think of it so far. Yeah, but thank you for having me on.
Look forward to having you back, dude.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
There you have it. Dustin, one of our channel mods here and channel sponsors. We appreciate everything that he brings to the table for us. Loyal guy. I really appreciate that. Randy, welcome to Derry, man. Episode 3, I thought they had a chance to pull back a little bit on what they did in episode 2. Obviously, episode 2, you get the big introduction of, hey, here's Dick Halloran. And those that don't know that name right off the bat, Dick Halloran is the fella from The Shining, who basically hands over a lot of the responsibility to Jack and Company. And he also knows that Danny can do what he calls shining, as can he, and he plays a massive part in this series, which has been a very new twist to what's going on. And I think, if I have my math right, this would take place 18 years prior to The Shining, which makes sense given how old the actor is at this point. But I think he's killing it, man. Like, I've liked the stuff with the kids, don't get me wrong, and the build up to Pennywise, but the integrating The Shining into this and his character specifically having such a big part to play in this, but also then touching on Shawshank as well. Like, it's not just an It show, it's become a, hey, this is the Stephen King franchise show.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it for sure. Um, it's just been, when we first think of with the title of the show and what we expect, and to have all these nods and crossovers between other Stephen King properties, you're just like, this is a love letter to all Stephen King fans. That's what this show is, and I'm here for it. I'm absolutely loving it. I love the tone. I love how we haven't gotten a real glimpse of Pennywise yet. I think, like, with Halloran's vision on the helicopter, I thought that was done really well. I'm just loving the interactions between the characters. I think all these guys have really, between the children and the adults, everybody has really good chemistry on screen together. This has been is really enjoyable, and this is every time I watch an episode so far, it's giving me more and more hope that ultimately Crystal Lake is going to benefit from this as well.
Same showrunner, man. And I gotta say, I mean, we're only 3 episodes in. The series could still go to shit. There's still more
Very
episodes
true.
that haven't come yet than what we've gotten. But the fact that it has been this good bodes well for Crystal Lake, as long as we remember this is an HBO show and
Right.
Crystal Lake isn't. That does play a factor into it
Little
a bit, but I think Brad Caleb Kane deserves the credit for the quality that's been put out there with the show so far and how well it's been cast. I think I made a post in our group chat about this earlier, but like, I liked the new It movies that came out in recent years. I thought they were very well done. I thought the cast was incredibly. They performed incredibly well, and I was excited to give this a shot. There was a part of me that was giving it a shot too, though, in terms of doing some homework for preparing for Crystal Lake and seeing what he did with this series. But man, I got to tell you, I didn't have. I'm trying to think of the best way to word this. As much as I like all aspects of the series, Randy, the Dick Halloran part, I'm biased. I think The Shining's the best horror movie ever made. I really do. I think it fucks with your mind if you watch it in certain settings. I think his part, like that section of the story, has become the most entertaining part of the story for me, anyways. I don't know if it's intended to be that way, but it definitely is coming across that way.
Well, and I like with this past episode, they gave a little backstory, and the fact that on the chopper, he's using the slingshot to be able to sense Pennywise, and I think that was a nice little tie-in to what they're trying to show you. And then the idea of, once you leave Derry, you forget about Derry, but once you come back to Derry, all these memories flood back. And that's always something that's always been in every Stephen King novel and movie and TV series, about just how there's just something about Derry. And I like how they're kind of trying to tie it all into Pennywise, which is kind of neat as well. I know there's going to be some things that are going to end badly just based on the foreshadowing we're seeing so far in just 3 episodes, but I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Oh, yep, exactly. It's like we all know one thing is for sure. We know at least one person making it out alive for now.
I don't know how many more other than that, but we know he makes it. So,
and have you noticed like some of the kids have basically, it's like they're having some of the same names as kids in the actual It book, in the movies and everything, and I'm just like going, huh, that's interesting. They're reusing some of the kids' names from the movies and the book. Like the one kid named Richie, I'm like, well, they had a Richie in the movie too. So it's curious how it seems like similar names, similar groups. They're all trying to have that as like a, I would say not a plot device so much, but just having something similar in each era that we see Pennywise, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and I mean, right now they have a 3-season plan. Keep in mind, it could easily get canceled after 1 season if they don't think the ratings are good enough. But their 3-season plan was laid out in this last episode if people were paying attention. It is this season's 1962. The following season is, well, I shouldn't say the following season is 1935 because that might not be accurate. They might go 1902 and then 1935. We've heard a bunch about this massacre now in 1935, but don't really know many details about it. And then 1902, we see at the beginning there with the general there from the army, and I had a hunch that was going to be his character, and that was going to be the slingshot in the box there. But like, it's very kind of Fear Streetish the way that they're starting to lay out the seasons. Hopefully, they get to tell the whole story. But all in all, I've been blown away by it, and I do think, even though it's not going to be an HBO show, I hope people that are excited for Crystal Lake, Friday fans who've been desperate for content, are paying attention to this show because Brad Caleb Kane's definitely taken a lot of care with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I said, with every episode I watch and how the quality and the story, it's really kind of like, okay, if this dude gets to give this type of care to Crystal Lake, I think we're in for a real treat when it finally does drop.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Johnny? You gonna give Welcome to Derry a shot at some point?
Yeah. I right now am. The current plan is I'm just waiting for the whole series and then I can binge it. That's my plan. I'm more accustomed to that for like that type of shows.
Yeah.
So that is my plan, to watch it when it's all done.
Makes sense to me. All right, that is going to do it for our House of Haddonfield segment. I know we're running a little long in the twos tonight, like the first week, but the first few weeks are going to be that way, and then you'll start to see the shows probably balance out around the 2-hour mark, 2-hour 15 mark. But let's get to our last topic of the evening. It's Flixbusters. And so the way this works is we review a film, or I shouldn't say multiple films, because that's not true. We review a film, and we discuss it a little bit, and give our scores for it. With this one, it's Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Johnny wasn't on in week 1, and I think the way we've decided to do this, since Zach and I, and occasionally Randy, were doing it on Bannerman Banter, is we're going to combine mine, Randy, and Zach's scores into one. But Johnny's also going to be, he has his own subcategory. In fact, he has his own title. And we're going to reveal that momentarily, and it's quite fitting.
For the record, Johnny has no idea what is going on here.
He
I don't
forced
either.
my hand into doing this. So, and he'll have his own intro music too for when he's on for these. Just that's not ready yet. It's coming, but it's not ready yet. And we got a pretty good idea.
I don't. In the words of people much smarter than I got a bad feeling about this.
Be
And we're
afraid.
gonna go
Be very
to
afraid.
Johnny's scorecard. First of all, let's talk about the film a little bit. Star Wars Attack of the Clones, Episode 2, released in theaters May 2002, 3 years after Star Wars Episode 1 had come out. I've seen this film more in theaters than I've ever seen any other film, and that's 6 times.
That's 6 times more than I've seen it in a theater.
I loved this film when it came out. Now, it's definitely fallen down the list for me, and as I've gotten older, some of the cheap, I shouldn't say cheap, because at the time it wasn't cheap CG, but this was we're jumping way too far into everything digital, in my opinion, and some of it looks good, a lot of it doesn't in this movie, but we're going to go to Johnny first, and this is, I guess, our first episode, our first segment of Johnny's penthouse. You got to have the fabulous threesome somewhere. And here we are with Johnny's penthouse. Johnny, walk us through your scorecard, man. I got to give you props. Your score is higher than I thought it was going to be.
I think there were definitely parts of it that were raised up by other things. You know, like, let's be honest.
Whoa. Where is this going? I know we're going to penthouse talk, but let's keep it on the topic of Star Wars.
No, it is relevant to the topic, but I think the one place where the score kind of was inflated from what I kind of expected it to be was writing and story and acting and directing. I think those are higher than when necessarily I would have expected going in, because they're kind of amalgamated elements. Like acting and directing, I cannot in good faith give a movie that features Sir Christopher Lee as low rating as it really deserves, because the directing would drag it all the way down into like the 4s and 5s.
Yeah, Christopher Lee and Ewan McGregor carry this movie.
Those are the only two reasons. Those are the only two reasons that this gets a 10, because everything else is, but I cannot take away from their performances and their embodiment of the characters. So that was sort of higher than I thought when we first started this. Writing and story is the same, because in reality it's dog shit, but it is, I don't want to say necessary, but it feels in place in the story. That's the important part, is that it's writing and story. Well, one would probably get a 1. Let's be honest. Writing, 1. And I would have thought about going into like the 0.6s, because I think the writing is genuinely that bad. But the story, as bad as the writing is still at least mediocre, you know? And that's where that one was sort of inflated, was the story, because as bad as it is, it's still coherent, it still makes sense, and I will say it is necessary in certain places for the Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader arc. So it's not like, you know, I can't just sit here and say, if you take it out of the road and remove it and it never existed, we wouldn't lose anything, because we would. There were things that we would have lost. But, you know, let's be honest, it's production and sound that boost this thing up dramatically, because they're the two categories that I cannot deny in this. Sound design and score is a 20, because it's John fucking Williams. I'm sorry, but that man can score, like, you know,
anything and everything,
anything he wants to. Like, there are some stinkers that he scored, but the scores are still amazing. And that's it. I can listen to the Attack of the Clones soundtrack and enjoy it top to bottom. I cannot deny it. Production quality. I mean, if there's one thing I will always give George Lucas credit for, it is the visuals. It is the look and the feel. And he nailed those things. Those are elements he absolutely nailed. That's why it's inflated for what I would have expected. Like, when I see this right in front of me and I see, damn, this got a 61, even I'm shocked it's that high. But when I stop and think about each of the individual numbers, having a perfect 20 for sound design and score and an 18 for production quality are going to inflate those numbers. Enjoyment factor, yeah, it's the lowest score because it's the one I enjoy the least. You know, it is worse than Attack. It is worse than The Phantom Menace to me. It is the worst Star Wars film, period, for me. I said that when we did the rankings a few weeks ago. It was the worst one for me because it doesn't have redemption. Like, there's one good part, and it's, you know, the battle at the end. You know,
so like, I gotta ask quickly here. Did you listen to any of my voice messages in the group chat yesterday?
In group chat yesterday?
About my drive home with Zachary?
No, I didn't. I honestly didn't see any voice messages in group chat.
So Zachary followed up our list from last week. The top 11 Star Wars live action movies. There's only 11. Okay. At 8 was The Empire Strikes Back. And I was having a bad mental episode in the car. And
how? You stopped the car and pulled over, right?
Well, no, but yeah. But I'll do you one better. At 7 is Attack of the Clones.
No. Okay, that's I was afraid you were about to say it like 1 or 2 was Attack of the Clones. And then I was
One was A New Hope.
okay, that's fine.
2 was Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, that's fine. So you got 2 of the top 3 correct.
3 was, I think, Return of the Jedi for him.
No, but okay.
No, sorry,
I mean,
3 was The Last Jedi.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
3 was The Last Jedi.
we're off the rails now.
4 was Rogue One. 5 was The Force Awakens.
We're off the rails now. I can't.
Yeah, I feel like this was a ploy by Rachel, the ultimate payback.
I agree. I concur. Right? If we can finding a way to blame her is accurate. Because
anytime you want. But speaking of just odd things, we got introduced to Johnny's penthouse tonight. By the way, all these years we've known each other, 3 decades, you've never invited me to your fabulous threesome penthouse in New York. It looks like it's hard to tell, but if you
in my
look
defense,
really closely,
until about 5 minutes ago, I didn't know I had one. So that's probably why. Because
I can only imagine what your theme music's going to be.
Well, I'll tell
it's
you
not
what
John Williams. I'll tell you that.
So what I wanted to use for him was Val Venus's theme for about 15 seconds, but I don't know if I can sneak that past getting copyright hit. So it might be another theme relating to similar style. And speaking of, relating to similar style, it's very clear to me Randy wants to visit Johnny's penthouse when we look at his overall score here. Randy, walk us through your card.
I mean, Johnny, that should have been your score for your penthouse, man.
I like the score. I like the score. I don't like how you got there, though.
So, obviously, when it comes to anything review-wise, I don't go as in-depth as Johnny does in terms of his likes and dislikes. But I always felt like for the 12 for this writing in the story, I mean, it's not the worst thing I've seen. At least it's not the holiday special, right? So
no, it's better.
So
hey, don't forget, Carrie Fisher was the script doctor on this movie.
Yeah,
everybody makes mistakes.
I felt like the story was okay. I mean, the writing of it, some of the dialogue, things like that. I mean, it could have been a little bit better. I mean, it's like it's sand. I hate sand. It's coarse, rough, gets everywhere. You just got them banger lines right there. But I mean, ultimately, the story worked. I think it's something we needed. There had to be that. I mean, I kind of bought into the awkwardness of Anakin trying to woo someone who was 10 times up above his pay grade, essentially. So it's, there's some cheesiness to it that I didn't mind, but still, it wasn't anything to write home about. As far as acting and directing, again, it's average. That's why I put it as a 10. It's just average. It's not anything that's going to make me jump up and down about it. It was passable to a degree, but it still had a lot left to be desired. But I also look at, it ties into the writing as well. Hayden Christensen not understanding really who Anakin was because it's the first time he gets to play him. There's no real idea of what Anakin's supposed to be. So, and then of course we see his performance now in Ahsoka, and you just kind of go, damn, well done, just because the character's fleshed out. So I feel like that's kind of why even George didn't really know who Anakin was, and it showed in the directing in that respect. But again, Ewan McGregor and Christopher Lee just showing just why they are as good as they are, that even they can be in turds and still make it look good. Obviously, production quality is always going to get high marks because it's Star Wars. I've never seen. I can't say I've ever seen a Star Wars movie that didn't look good, or sound good. The only reason the score, the sound design is right up there, but the only reason the score is as low as it is, it has nothing to do with John Williams. It just doesn't. It's just not my favorite score. That's all there really is to it. It's out of the prequels. It's my least favorite. Don't get me wrong. I still listen to it, but doesn't have my attention as Revenge of the Sith or The Phantom Menace does. As terms of an enjoyment factor, it's like I enjoyed it, but I'm not. It's like every time it's on TV, whereas my wife is like, it's Star Wars, I'm watching Star Wars. I'm just kind of going, what are you watching? Oh, Attack of the Clones. Yeah, I'll go play video games in the other room. It's one of those things where it's like, let me know when Yoda's on screen kicking Dooku's ass in a lightsaber duel, and I will come and watch that with you. Like, because that's kind of what saves it for me, is that battle at the end, and we finally get to see Yoda wielding a lightsaber, and that takes my excitement level for what originally was kind of a 5 and just shot it right up to a 12, because I'm just like, okay, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen at the time when I first saw it in theaters. But so yeah, that's why you got a 69 though. At least it's a great number, and I didn't fully shit on it. So there you go.
I think Attack of the Clones is great. I think the concept of Attack of the Clones is great. I think the score is incredible. I mean, it's damn near perfect if you ask me. Across the Stars is just as sweet as it gets. The Camino theme is fantastic. I love how it's more of a detective movie at times, and then also you're dealing with Anakin's emotional trauma. The problem is on the acting side of things, I think Hayden, Natalie, and Daniel Logan leave a whole lot to be desired in this movie. But the flip side of that coin is Ewan McGregor, and then the late great Christopher Lee, alongside even Temuera Morrison, who I think this is his best performance in Star Wars is in this movie. But also Ian McDiarmid. Like, you don't see much of the Emperor in this movie, but when you see Palpatine, like, he's so fucking conniving. He's like that little fucking weasel that he's up to something, but you just can't pin it on him. And I just think the execution, unfortunately, I think I'll go one step further. I think that this movie had the potential to be the best movie in the entire franchise, with everywhere they go and all the different things they do. But unfortunately, so much of it comes down to execution, and I would say some of it was very poorly executed. I have writing and story at 14, acting and directing at 12, production quality at 17, sound design and score at 20, enjoyment factor at 17. I've seen this thing 6 times in theaters. And even though I really, really like it, I couldn't bear to give it more than 80%. 80% was the ceiling for me. And that's where it ended up. And then we have Zach's scorecard here. I believe we have a couple of notes from Zach, too. Let me go look. He says, writing and story is a 12, acting and directing is a 12, production quality is a 17, sounds a 20, enjoyment's a 13 for a 74. Across the Stars is unequivocally beautiful, and this was the movie the seismic charge was introduced. Yeah, that piece of sound design right there, the seismic charges, friggin' Obi-Wan and Django are going at it in the asteroid field. Like, hearing that in theaters was just fucking remarkable. I know they repeated it in the Book of Boba Fett, but it wasn't the same.
Well, and think about it, like the entire scene, everything just goes quiet for a moment, and that including the music, and the next thing you know, you just hear that explosion of the seismic charge, and that really was cool. I'm not gonna lie.
What it does is it brings our overall score for this one between Randy, Zach, and I to 74.3%, 223 possible points out of 300. And then in the first episode of Johnny's Penthouse, baby, where Mr. Fabulous Threesome makes his name, 61% at Attack of the Clones. I really got to say, man, I was expecting you to be below 50. Not a ton, but I was thinking high 40s for you. The impressive part is, and I don't think Johnny knew this piece of information, is it's Flixbusters. Well, in order to be a flick, you have to be 60% or higher.
No.
In order to be a bust.
Oh, Johnny, look at you. You made it a flick.
Under 60%. So even in Johnny's Penthouse, Attack of the Clones is in fact a flick.
Damn you, John Williams!
That feels like an appropriate note to end the show on. Thank you, everyone, for coming out for this 2-hour and 40-minute stream. Next week will be just as long. I'm warning you, probably closer to 3 hours, and then we'll wind things down into a better medium. Tomorrow night, live on our Patreon, which, even though I realize what the graphic said all show long, it's currently still patreon.com/The Mask of Fear. We will be watching Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 1, which I am quite fond of, at 10 p.m. Eastern. Looking forward to that, guys, and jumping into it with you. Big shout out to our channel sponsors one more time, Ryan over at Kaulignation, your one-stop shop for all things NASCAR. We have Jason Nyke over at Backtrack Cinema, great place for retro films. Jesse Storytime Spectacular, and Dustin, who joined us earlier. It'd be hard to do this without any of them. Thank you for the support. We really appreciate it. Randy, where can everybody find you at, man? What do you got going on?
You can find me over next at Giggity Gals, and as the second half of the NFL season starts, I will be tomorrow night, either tomorrow night or Wednesday night, we'll be recording the next episode of the Sports Brew. If you like beer, bullshit, and just all around craziness and talk of sports, just Google Sports and Brew and you find us, no problem.
Johnny, how about you, man? What do you got going on?
Oh, you can.
I mean, other than what's going on in the penthouse. I mean, we'll save that for another time.
Well, I'll say that for another show. No, here, there, and everywhere. That's where you can find me.
Here, there, and everywhere. Well, there you have it. Check us out on Facebook over at the Legacy of Halloween. You can find us there. We have some altered groups coming up here that we'll share in the near future. But that is going to do it for us tonight. Reminder, next week, I think it's an 8 p.m. start, but it might be a 9 p.m. start. I don't know yet. It's going to require the other two who have to do a whole setup of a studio to do this. So we'll get to you on the start time, but a 10-year reunion show, Star Wars Wastelands podcast. Randy will be joining us for segments on there and trivia, as well as a bunch of other people. Really looking forward to that. And we used to do this in the past, so it feels appropriate to do it now. Viewer discretion is advised for that episode.
Strongly.
Strongly. Put the kids to bed. They shouldn't be awake at that time anyways. There's an old school line. But for Randy and Johnny and Dustin, who joined us earlier, and Zach, who could not be here tonight, but will be back next week, I'm Sean. And we will see you next time when the Empire calls.